Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today, well, it's pretty immense. We're diving into those really chaotic centuries that bridge the Middle Ages and the Renaissance.
That's right.
We're basically trying to get a handle on the historical, biological, geopolitical forces shaking things up globally from roughly the 12th century up to the mid-15th.
Yeah, and it's so important, to move beyond. The Renaissance just sort of appeared fully formed in Italy.
Right.
Our sources, things like the accounts in Renaissance world, they show these preceding centuries where this crucible of intense global change.
So we're talking rediscovering ancient ideas, major religious conflicts.
Exactly, and huge environmental disasters, biological catastrophes like the plague, empires rising and falling everywhere from West Africa to India. It looks like chaos, definitely.
But maybe a structured chaos.
Precisely, structured by these deep systemic shifts happening worldwide.
Okay, so where should we start? Maybe with that big intellectual shift, the 12th century Renaissance.
Good place to start, yeah.
What strikes me is it wasn't really about creating brand new knowledge, was it? It was more like this frantic recovery mission.
That's a great way to put it. Retrieving and integrating really old, really challenging classical ideas that Western Europe had just lost.
For centuries, right. They had a pretty limited set of texts, mostly seen through a religious lens.
Almost exclusively theological, yeah. And then around 1140, you get this Italian scholar, Gerardo of Cremona. He makes this crucial trip, not a crusade, but a knowledge quest.
To Spain, the Iberian Peninsula.
Exactly. He's hunting for one of the big ones, a real crown jewel of ancient science, Ptolemy's Almagest. It's this 1,000-year-old Greek astronomy text.
And he figured Spain was the place because Muslim Spain, centers like Toledo, had spent centuries doing what? Preserving these texts.
Preserving and translating thousands of them. Greek classics into Arabic. The knowledge hadn't vanished. It just, moved civilizations.
So Toledo becomes this incredible bridge.
A vital intellectual bridge. Suddenly, scholars from Christian Europe could directly access Greek math, medicine, philosophy, the full scope for the first time in ages.
And this flood of classical logic, especially Aristotle's non-religious reasoning, that must have caused some waves.
Well, it fundamentally changed everything. Immediately created this intellectual battleground.
You mean people like Pierre Abelard?
Right at the forefront. He's arguing that truth doesn't only come from scripture. You can use Aristotelian methods, reason, debate, secular logic alongside faith.
Which, for the established church, must have sounded like...
Like an existential threat. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If any student could use logic to find truth without a priest, well, where does that leave the church's authority? It's monopoly on knowledge.
So you get pushback, serious pushback.
Huge pushback. Traditionalists like Bernard of Clairvaux were just vehemently opposed. They basically said logical explanations, unnecessary, dangerous even.
His quote was something like,
"We only recognize the words of authority." Just blunt.
wow. So pure tradition versus this new independent reason.
They saw reason as spiritual pride, basically. But Abelard's students, they were all in. They were committed to this rigorous new way of thinking.
Defining themselves against the old guard, like a kind of philosophical liberation.
Yeah, and there's that quote that sums it up. Sumus exiles, vivindiquam auditores.
We are exiles to live as students.
Exactly, seeing themselves as intellectual refugees, ready to live by study and reason, whatever it cost.
But this intellectual light, as you called it, it's happening at the same time as something much darker, geopolitically speaking, the Crusades.
The peak period of the Crusades, yeah. And our sources really show how quickly those wars of faith could just morph into raw power grabs and cynical self-interest.
You see it right away, don't you? First-generation crusaders, like Bohemond, the Norman commander.
Perfect example. He swears this solemn oath to the Byzantine emperor Alexios, promises loyalty, takes Antioch in 1098, and immediately breaks the oath. Just like that.
Didn't Alexios' own daughter write about this? Anna Comnene?
She did. She was a historian in the palace, watched it all. She had zero patience for Bohemond, called him naturally a liar.
Ouch. But it highlights a key point, right? Byzantium, this ancient Christian empire in the East, is realizing the help from the West isn't always help.
Sometimes it was just aggression in disguise. Self-enrichment wearing a cross.
And that cynicism, that betrayal, it just explodes with the Fourth Crusade in 1204.
Oh, the Fourth Crusade. Truly one of history's most shocking moments. A Christian army, supposedly going to the Holy Land.
Ends up attacking Constantinople, the biggest Christian city in the world.
Sacking it. Viciously. The sources describe just harrowing scenes. mass looting, stealing priceless holy relics,
And terrible violence against the population.
widespread sexual violence against virgins, married women, even nuns. It's hard to even grasp the damage this did to the whole idea of united Christendom.
Even the Pope who launched it, Innocent III, he was horrified.
Absolutely appalled by the outcome. His rebuke says it all, really. The irony was just crushing. These men were supposed to serve Christ, and instead they washed their swords in the blood of Christians.
So it wasn't just a moral failure, it was a geopolitical catastrophe. It crippled Byzantium.
Permanently weakened it, really paved the way for its eventual fall centuries later. But here's the fascinating, maybe disturbing pivot.
What's that?
How papal authority, which condemned this violence against Christians, then turns around and actively starts institutionalizing violence on a global scale.
You mean shifting from condemning violence to sanctioning it? How does that happen?
We fast forward a couple of centuries to the 1450s,
Okay.
and the sources show the Pope issuing the Romanus Pontifex. This papal decree basically gives the King of Portugal the green light
The green light for what?
to conquer lands along the African coast, seize territory, and this is crucial to enslave and sell any Africans they encountered.
Wow, so the papacy officially sanctions the slave trade.
Well, it looks like pure realpolitik. The Pope needed the Portuguese crown as a strong ally in various struggles. Portugal was a major maritime power.
So it's a trade-off. Loyalty for...
The moral and legal justification. The decree argued that conquering and enslaving pagans was sort of a necessary evil to claim their lands for Christ and eventually convert them.
But the sources make it clear this wasn't just about, say, prisoners of war. This was different.
Oh, absolutely. This was the institutionalization of race-based chattel slavery. It created an economic system based on owning people as property that all the other European powers, the Spanish, English, French, could then tap into. Basically, papal authority gave it a stamp of approval.
That's a profound turning point, shaping the future of continents based on this sanctioned right to enslave.
Exactly. A global turning point, really, built on centuries of rethinking authority and power.
Okay, let's shift gears again. The 14th century. This feels like a time when just everything went wrong. Nature itself turning against people. Before the plague, there was the Great Famine.
A terrifying sequence, yeah. Starting around 1310, the climate just destabilizes completely. We're talking year after year of nonstop rain. 1314, 1315, 1316.
So crops just wouldn't grow.
Wouldn't ripen. Plus, widespread livestock diseases, starvation was rampant. Some sources suggest maybe a tenth of the population died just from hunger.
The descriptions sound like total social collapse, not just hardship, but the fabric of society tearing.
That's the key. The Great Famine wasn't just about empty stomachs. It weakened society structurally, destroyed trust in markets, in government, shattered communities, made people physically and psychologically vulnerable.
Primed for what came next.
Exactly. This decade of trauma preconditioned Europe for the ultimate biological shock.
And adding to the terror, there was something in the sky. A comet.
Yeah, during the worst famine years, a really bright comet was visible day and night, apparently.
Which people at the time would have seen as.
Not just a cool astronomical event. Oh, no. It was seen as a powerful omen. A sign from God, maybe, reflecting the chaos on Earth. The bad harvests, the crime, the disorder. Heaven itself seemed angry.
As if famine and floods weren't enough. Then comes the Black Death. We know the bacteria, Yersinia pestis, was around Lake Issyk-Kul by 1338. How did it make that final jump into Europe?
It traveled along the trade routes, definitely. But the story of its leap into the Mediterranean is just grim. It involves the siege of Theodosia, a Genoese trading post in 1347.
What happened there?
The attacking Mongol Golden Horde army was dying from the plague themselves, and they realized they could weaponize it.
You mean?
They started using their catapults to hurl the corpses of their own plague-dead soldiers over the city walls.
Biological warfare. Medieval style. Dear God.
It's horrifying. But it seems to have worked. It helped spread the disease among the defenders, and from that port city, it rapidly spread across the Mediterranean.
Into a European population already weakened by famine.
Physically compromised, psychologically terrified, and with absolutely no immunity to this new killer. The death toll was just unimaginable. It shattered everything, the economy, social structures, religious faith.
But it's crucial to remember, right, that while Europe is reeling from all this intellectual fights, bad crusades, famine, plague, other parts of the world aren't just sitting still.
Not at all. Global connections meant disaster here didn't stop flourishing, or even aggressive empire building elsewhere.
Like in West Africa, the Canaan state.
Right. Under its ruler Janama, Canaan was a major power, controlled the really lucrative eastern trade route, think Chad Basin, through Bilma, north to Tripoli, a vital economic artery.
And what fueled that economy, according to the
The
sources?
sources are pretty clear. A vigorous slave trade was central, and was controlled by the king, a royal privilege.
So control over people was key to wealth and power.
Absolutely. Slaves, along with gold and salt, gave the ruler immense authority, allowed him to project power across the region. It wasn't just local, it was systemic.
And you see a similar kind of ruthless power consolidation over in India, the Delhi Sultanate.
Especially under Balaban, mid-13th century. His whole reign seems defined by asserting the dignity and authority of the administration, as the sources put it. And he did it through deliberate, calculated terror.
How so?
Well, when putting down a rebellion in Mewar, he didn't just defeat them, he killed thousands, yes. But then he had captives skinned alive.
Skinned alive.
And hung the skins on the city gates as a public display. The goal wasn't just punishment. It was to restore order by making the state's power absolutely terrifying and undeniable.
So across the globe in these centuries leading up to the Renaissance, we're seeing this pattern. Successful states are often the ones most capable of asserting brutal physical control.
Whether it's controlling trade routes like Khanem, military brutality like Delhi, or conquest, it seems to be a defining feature of state power in this era.
And conversely, the failure to maintain control, that brings us back to Byzantium.
Precisely. While Europe dealt with its own crises, Byzantium's long decline was made worse by constant infighting. Self-inflicted wounds.
They were too busy fighting each other.
To see the bigger threat gathering right outside, the sources talk about these incredibly damaging internal conflicts.
Like that civil war in the mid-14th century.
The 7-year war between Emperor Andronicus III and his own grandfather. Think about that. It wasn't just a squabble. It was a massive drain on resources, on military focus. It hollowed out the empire from within.
Making them vulnerable.
Deeply vulnerable. So when the Ottoman Turks were really ready to make their big move, Byzantium was already fractured.
Which leads us right up to the edge, 1452, Sultan Mehmed II.
The conqueror. Utterly determined to take Constantinople. And he starts by building this huge fortress, Botoskesen.
Which means throat cutter.
Tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it? Rumeli Hisarya is the other name.
And he builds it right on the Bosphorus, on the European side.
It wasn't just defensive, it was a statement. Positioned perfectly to control all ship traffic between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. The Byzantine emperor literally watched the stones go up day by day.
Knowing what it meant.
Knowing it was an unmistakable signal. This massive fortress meant Mehmed intended, as he apparently said himself, to put an end to Constantinople.
The end of an era. The final closing of the Byzantine age and the rise of this new Ottoman superpower.
So if we try to pull all these threads together for you, our listener, what's the big picture from these centuries, the 12th to the mid-15th?
Well, it seems to be this incredible mix, right? Intellectual breakthroughs alongside profound darkness.
Exactly. You have the rediscovery of Aristotle, of rational thought challenging old authorities, opening doors to new ways of thinking.
But at the same time, you have the Crusades devolving into cynical violence. You have Christian authorities actually sanctioning mass enslavement.
And all this playing out against this backdrop of just devastating environmental disaster, the unimaginable horror of the Black Death.
And ruthless empires rising through sheer force, whether in India, Africa, or the emerging Ottoman state.
It's really a period of massive global realignment, defined by conflict that spanned the known world, by biological catastrophe that changed humanity's relationship with nature, and by a fundamental redefinition of power, authority, and even morality across different cultures.
Which leaves us with maybe one final thought for you to chew on.
Yeah.
We've talked about that 12th century intellectual spark, the rediscovery of reason, and then we saw it collide with entrenched authority and then get overwhelmed by the mass suffering of the 14th century famine and plague. So here's the question. When we look at the later Renaissance, the one we usually think of, with its focus on humanism, on human potential, on classical beauty and order, to what degree was that less about some sudden, sunny enlightenment?
And more. What?
More like a desperate reaction, a philosophical, maybe artistic attempt to find meaning, order, and human value in the face of the overwhelming chaos, death, and destruction that had defined the centuries immediately before. Was humanism, in a way, born from trauma?